What's the story, Morning Glory? What's the word, Hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for this review of 90 Day Fiancé Love in Paradise Season 3, Episode 1, Check Your Baggage. So let's get started with Annie and Kyle. Okay, so Annie is 39 years old. She is originally from Germany, but she is now living in Malta. And she tells us that during the pandemic, the restrictions in Germany were way too strict. And so she wanted to go somewhere where it was a little bit more, the restrictions were a little bit looser. So she ends up on the island of Malta, and she was only going to be there for a few weeks, but she ended up staying there even longer because she had a really great job opportunity there. So she is still living in Malta. She lives there with her 6-year-old son that she had from a previous relationship, and she really does want to have a second child. Now, she talks about how she met Kyle online, but she didn't give too many details as far as how they met, under what circumstances. So there was a lot of context missing from that conversation. So she is really hoping that Kyle will father her second child. Okay. So I'm thinking to myself, wow, this must be really serious if she's already thinking about having a baby with this guy that she has not even met in person yet. So then we meet Kyle. He's 32 years old. He is from LA originally, but he travels a whole lot. And when we meet him, he is currently in London. And he's there not necessarily, his job requires him to travel. His job requires him to travel a lot, but he also has a very demanding hobby. So he tells us that he is a sperm donor. That's his hobby. His hobby is donating his sperm to women and couples who really want to have a baby but can't have it, through more traditional ways. So okay, I'm thinking, okay, I've seen that plenty of times. That's not unusual that you're a sperm donor. But normally when I have seen sperm donors, it's always like men who do it periodically. Maybe they'll do it once in their lifetime, maybe twice in their lifetime. Kyle made a hobby out of this, where he is doing this 3 to 5 times a month, and he's been doing this for 10 years. He has fathered 71 children, and he has 9 on the way. So while he's talking about this, he's got this map spread out in front of him, and he is marking all the spots where his children are currently living or where he has, deposited his specimen. I don't really know, but he's got kids all over the world, 71. I mean, how does he even, okay, I was wondering, how does he even know that he's fathered 71 children? But he's not even going through clinics, where you deposit or you give them your specimen at a clinic, and then you really don't know what goes on after that. After you give them, make your deposit, you don't know if there's children coming out of this, if you don't really know. But the reason why he knows, he's able to keep track of exactly on how many children that he has and where they're all at, is because he doesn't go through a clinic. Him and the women, or him and the couples, they deal with each other directly. So he tells us that he'll either, put his specimen in a cup, and then the woman will use a syringe or whatever to, impregnate herself, inseminate herself, or he'll do it the natural way, where he will literally have sex with the woman to get her pregnant. Y'all, that blew my mind. I was like, what the hell is going on over here? Because when I think of sperm donation, I'm thinking of, things are done through a clinic with doctors and professionals, and it's very clinical, and it's very definitely not having sex to impregnate a woman that you don't even know. So when we meet Kyle, he's actually in London, and he's there to meet a woman who he's going to impregnate the natural way. So he's in the bedroom, and he's fixing the bed, I guess, getting things ready for her. And he tells us that, she's going to come over, we're going to get naked, and then we're going to have sex. And then he talked about a process that they do after having sex to make sure that the sperm is deposited and goes in goes into the right place or whatever. He says something like the woman is going to be upside down in the bed or something like that. And he's going to be standing. He described something that sounded very acrobatic, and I'm not exactly sure what he was saying, but I got the impression that he was trying to explain that they're going to be in this awkward position to make sure that, gravity assists, the specimen to go to where it needs to go. That's what I'm assuming he was talking about. And it just blew my mind that he was going to be like actually sleeping with this woman to get her pregnant. Like I said, my understanding of sperm donation is that everything is done through clinics and doctors, and it's, really sterile and very, anyways, I don't know. So like, I don't know. I don't even know, because you're going to be having unprotected sex with a stranger in hopes of getting her pregnant. So I'm just going to assume, even though he didn't mention it, I'm going to assume that y'all have gone to the doctor, y'all have gotten your tests done for diseases. But what about genetic abnormalities? Like, what about that? Like, how do y'all screen for that if y'all are doing it in this way? Y'all, I don't know what the hell is going on, but Kyle was a character. So he tells us that he met Annie online, and he met her because she was looking for a sperm donor. Now, Annie did not mention any of this to us, but she was looking for a sperm donor. That's how they met. They got to talking about that, but then the conversation, I guess, led them to like getting to know each other better, and they just ended up talking. They ended up liking each other, and a relationship was formed from that. And so now they're going to be meeting 7 months into their relationship. They're going to be meeting in person. And Annie is telling us that she is aware of what he does as a hobby, but she wants him to stop. If they're going to be in a relationship, she wants him to stop doing that. But she specifically really wants him to stop impregnating women the natural way. Obviously, that makes a lot of sense. So, they meet at the airport. And when they meet for the first time at the airport, they're very pleasantly surprised with one another. There's an attraction there. He talks about how beautiful she is in person. She talks about his, beautiful brown eyes, etc. And so while they're still at the airport, they haven't even left their airport yet. And Kyle gets even more weird. He talks about how he has this point system, and where like throughout their interactions, Annie is either going to be gaining or losing points, right? So it depends on things that he likes or doesn't like about her. For example, she smells good, that gets her 1 point. She doesn't drink, she doesn't smoke, she doesn't take drugs, that gets her another point, or however many points. So if there's anything about her that he doesn't like, he'll deduct points. Weird as hell. And he says that for 3 points, she gets a kiss. For 5 points, she gets a kiss with tongue. And then for 10 points, she gets sex. So in him being able to impregnate women, I guess has really like made him have this really big ego about himself, or think very highly of himself, to where he's like, I'm one of the most desired men on earth because I'm out here impregnating women, making their dreams come true by giving them babies. And so he really is kind of like full of himself when he's like, I'm going to take points away if I don't like this, and I'm going to give you points if I like that. So Annie tells him straight up the bat, yeah, no, we're not going to be doing that. That sounds ridiculous. I'm not going to be on any kind of point system. Well, he tells us that she really has no choice, that the point system is in place and he's not going to get rid of it. So crazy weird. I've never seen anything like this before in my life. So Annie thinks that the reason why Kyle is like this is because he lacks relationship experience, and that's why he has this point system. Kyle says that the point is to prolong intimacy, because jumping into bed with someone immediately reminds him of him naturally inseminating women, and it makes it more clinical, and he doesn't want it like that, and that's why he's got the points system in place. And I didn't understand any of that, but like, you do you, Kyle, whatever. Weird as hell. Moving on from there, y'all, let's talk about Shawn and Aaliyah, I guess. I don't know. Let's talk about Shawn and Aaliyah. So Shawn is 61 years old. He says he is from New York and LA. He is a hairstylist by trade, and he has styled the hair or the heads of all types of celebrities. He's worked on all kinds of shows, The Voice, The Real Housewives of whatever. So he's like really very much entrenched into the whole Hollywood scene as a hairstylist. So he tells us that he met the hairstylist asked him something about they got to talking about relationships. And so Shawn tells a hairstylist, yes, I met someone in Brazil, this guy named Douglas, and, we hit it off and we really liked each other, et cetera, et cetera. Everything was going really well. And then about 6 months into their relationship, he tells the hairdresser that they were in Spain during Pride and there was going to be a Pride parade. And he had suggested to Douglas, I guess Douglas was going to be on one of the floats. So Shawn has suggested to Douglas, well, why don't you get on the float as, like in full drag? And so you didn't have to ask Douglas twice. So Douglas was on it. So Douglas, did the whole drag setup with the hair, with the wig and the nails and the makeup and all of that. And Shawn says that once Douglas took on this persona of Aaliyah in drag, Douglas kind of stuck with it. And it seemed like it became a part of him. So now Shawn is in a conundrum because he fell in love with Douglas. He fell in love with masculine, manly Douglas. And, he fell in love with Douglas's physique. He works out, he's got muscles, he's toned, and that's what Shawn fell in love with. Shawn did not fall in love with a girl named Aaliyah. So he's trying to figure out exactly where's this relationship going. So he's going to be going to Brazil pretty soon. And when he gets to Brazil, he's going to have a conversation with Douglas into trying to figure out, okay, so what are we doing here? Because it seems like you are transitioning into Aaliyah and this is who you are. But that's not what I signed up for. I want Douglas. So we're trying to figure out exactly what's going to happen with all of that. Now, Shawn also tells us that he was married for 14 years to a woman. And then after they got a divorce, he's attracted to both men and women, but he was leaning more towards men. And so he's been dating pretty much men ever since his divorce. So he's attracted to men. And so the fact that now Douglas wants to be Aaliyah, is kind of like, I don't know, it's just like, what's going on now? So then we see Douglas, and Douglas talks to us about how, he was born male, but growing up, he had known early on that, he wasn't living his truth. But because he was being raised by very conservative and religious grandparents, he had to hide who he really was. And it wasn't until he met Shawn did he feel like he can be a little bit more of himself. So when he met Shawn, he was still Douglas, but he was wearing makeup and still very much a boy, but a boy with makeup. And once he did the whole drag thing at the Pride parade in Spain and put on the wig and the, female clothes and all of that, it clicked. He was like, this is who I'm supposed to be. This is me. So he wants to live his life as Aaliyah. So, he knows he's also going to have a conversation with Douglas, and he's hoping that Douglas will accept him as Aaliyah and that their relationship can continue. And I'm pretty sure, he's thinking to himself, I'm still the same person, whether I'm Douglas or Aaliyah, I'm still the same person. So if he loves me for me and he loves my soul and my spirit and my personality, it really shouldn't matter what the exterior looks like. I don't know. So when Shawn gets to Brazil, they're going to have a conversation about that because it seems like Shawn is really struggling with this. And, he really wants to know what are Douglas's plans, moving forward. Are you going to be transitioning like for real? Or are you still going to be just doing this now and then? Or what are we doing here? So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Then moving on to Luke and Meline. So we meet Meline first. She is a young woman living in Brazil, and we see her beautiful high-rise apartment, and she's got designer clothes and designer bags, and she's living this luxurious lifestyle and not a job in sight because her sugar daddy Luke, who lives in LA, is funding this lifestyle. So she talks about her and Luke and how they met. I guess they met, I think they met online. I'm not sure, but they have seen each other in person. He's traveled to Brazil, I'm pretty sure more than once, to be with her. And well, for sure, he did. He has traveled to Brazil many times because it put his job at risk. So he's been to Brazil many times. They've seen each other many times. And so she's talking about this lavish lifestyle that Luke is funding. And it's one of those, very typical sugar daddy, sugar baby. They're both fairly young. I think Luke is in his 30s and she might be in her late 20s or early 30s. So they're fairly young. And they're also engaged. But it's definitely a sugar daddy, sugar baby kind of vibe. And they're trying to celebrate sell it to us as if they're in a real relationship, like there's real love and feelings and emotions involved. But to me, it seems very much transactional. It seems like a business arrangement. He's paying for a beautiful, hot, young Brazilian woman for him to control, and she's taking advantage of a rich American man who is paying for all of her bills and giving her money and letting her live this, lavish lifestyle so that she doesn't have to work. So back in LA, when we see Luke, he is walking down the streets of LA in a black fur coat. Okay. In a black fur coat. That's when I knew I can't take this guy seriously. He is walking down the streets of LA in a black fur coat. And he sees himself as a businessman. He does, or he used to have a regular 9-to-5 job that was paying all the bills and funding Madeline's life or lifestyle in Brazil. But he tells us that his job ended up terminating him because he was taking too many days off to travel to Brazil to be with Madeline. So it got too excessive. They had to let him go. And now he has no money and he has to somehow break this news to Madeline. Now he's telling us, I don't know, she's still going to want to be with me once I tell her that I'm broke. I can tell you right now that she won't want to be with you. Okay, you're going to continue to, after he drops the bomb on her that he has no money, he's going to continue to try to keep her around a little bit longer, but she's not going to stick around. She will not stick around. Why would she? When she's used to a certain way of living and she can find another man to keep her at that level, why the hell would she, drop 20 notches to live like a struggling lifestyle? For what? For love? No, because she doesn't love you. So he tells us that he lost his job, but he did have like a whole bunch of businesses that he was investing in. He tells us that he spent $500,000 starting up various, like side hustles, all these little businesses, but these businesses were not turning a profit. So he was making no money from these businesses. His main source of income was his job, which he got fired from. So he is really broke. He said that he had spent $100,000 on Madeline, $500,000 on these businesses that went nowhere. So he's really stressed out. So he's on his way to Brazil and he's thinking about, I'm going to have to tell her that I don't have any money anymore. I'm going to lose my fiance because they are engaged. I'm going to lose my fiance, and he's completely stressed out. He liquidated his 401k, completely cashed it out. So yeah. He's in a bad situation. He's in a really bad situation. So we'll see how that goes. I'm pretty sure she is not going to stick around at all. Moving on to, or have I talked about them all? Oh, we're done. I talked about them all. Annie and Kyle, Luke and Madeline, Shawn and Aaliyah. Yeah, I talked about them all. Thank you so much, y'all, for joining me. Season 3 of Love in Paradise is going to be hectic as hell, and I'm here for it. If you like this content, subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to rate the video, and I will definitely talk to you later. Bye.